everybody. My name is Willow, and right now we are on my farm here in Nashville, Tennessee. And this is a new series that I've been doing recently where I tell stories about different things that have happened in my life, different milestones, and answer some frequently asked questions. So if you are interested in videos like this, make sure you are subscribed to see more and comment down below any ideas that you have for more videos for this series. So today's video is one that's very near and dear to my heart. I keep getting a lot of questions that are about the farm. How long have I been here? What made me move from New York to a farm? And just a lot of questions like that. So I'm going to tell that story today. It's actually a really, really crazy story of how I left New York and what brought me to the farm. So we're going to rewind all the way back to 2020 here, the beginning of 2020, before the pandemic was even really a thing. So we went and spent some time in LA right in January of 2020, and for a while, I'd not really been having the best time in New York. I'm from the country originally, and the city was just really, really intense. It was hard for me to spend a long time there consistently. I lived right on Central Park, but still, it was just so crazy there. I found myself having to escape like every weekend, going to different places, trying to get out of the city and reconnect back with nature. So I was already kind of thinking about moving from New York for quite a while, as it's the great escape, as I call it. I've been plotting it for a while. But then when the pandemic came, so in February of 2020, I booked a job for Milan Fashion Week, actually, where I flew to Milan and I closed the Elisabetta Franchi show. And so I flew over there just for that job, and it was just a very strange experience, everything that happened in Milan that fashion week. I'd done countless other fashion weeks at this point, and it was the only time that I'd ever done a direct booking and flown in just to walk in one show. I didn't even go to castings for any other shows. I was just there for the one. So I flew in, and I noticed that the energy was really weird there. From the second that I landed, there were men in hazmat suits at the airport, checking temperatures and like kind of asking a lot of questions to certain passengers. And I thought that was just really strange. You know, this was before the pandemic was even a thing at all, before any American news outlets were talking about it or anything like that. So I landed in Milan and thought it was weird. Didn't really think too much of it. I just continued on about my day, and I landed. I went straight to the headquarters and I did my fitting, and I was wearing this beautiful floor-length pink gown that was so gorgeous. Had a really, really nice fitting. Found out that I was closing the show, so that was a really cool milestone. And I was done with my fitting, and I walked out into the street, and I remember I've spent so much time at the Navigli Canal in Milan. It's one of my favorite places there. And I was just walking up and down, and normally it's hard to get a table at a restaurant in one of those places. Like, they're always busy, and all of the restaurants were just completely empty. It was a beautiful day. It was sunny, it was warm, it was lovely. Like, they should have been absolutely packed. So I thought that was a little bit weird, and I got a nice table, sat right on the terrace, didn't think too much of it. I had an absolutely lovely day. I had a few hours to kill, so I wandered around Milan a bit, and then the show was that evening, and did the show as usual. No problems at the show. And then I went back to my hotel, walked back from the show back to my hotel that night, and when I woke up, I remember I saw a news article that the rest of Fashion Week was canceled. I was like, that's really weird. I was literally just at Fashion Week last night and everything was totally normal. There were no warning signs or anything like that at Fashion Weeks. I mean, it was just the normal unhygienic Fashion Week that I know and love, where makeup artists are using the same brushes on every single model's face, like the same usual, very non-COVID protocol situation. So it was just really crazy and weird that the rest, I remember the Armani show was the next morning, and they'd canceled Armani and every other fashion show after that. I was like, that's really, really weird. And then, so my agency actually booked me 2 flights back to New York because they had found out what the situation was. After I'd already flown over, they realized that the coronavirus was hitting Milan hard. So they booked me 2 flights back. I got on the first one, which luckily did go, but the second flight that I was booked on just a couple hours later was canceled, and I was on one of the last flights back to America. When I got back, I quarantined, and luckily I wasn't sick. I didn't have any signs of COVID, but that's when I realized, okay, this might be a bigger deal than just a little cold. This might not just be one of those like media type of scares. So then after that, about a week or so after I got back to New York, the food started disappearing off the shelves and panic started really setting in Manhattan. So then I decided that I wanted to go spend some time down in Florida. I have a company down in Florida, my rental properties and stuff down there. So I decided to go on down there and spend some time with my family and just kind of see what was gonna happen. I didn't really feel safe in New York at the time, so left, went down there, and I actually found a beach house that I really loved down there and submitted an offer, and I was under contract to buy the beach house, okay? And then just a couple days after that, they shut down all the beaches, and so I couldn't even go outside of the house onto the beach, and that just really, really freaked me out. So I decided that I didn't want to do that after all and pulled out of that contract. And then I was looking at a lot of properties. At the time, I had been looking at farms in Nashville already for about like maybe 6 months. And I was just looking and looking and looking. And there was this one particular farm that I really had my eye on that was absolutely beautiful. It had the land I needed for horses and the house was gorgeous. So I was looking at it and it had $100,000 price reduction on it. I was like, that's crazy. That house was already really competitively priced. So that's an absolute steal now. So I contacted the agent that was selling the place and tried to submit an offer on it, sight unseen. It was gorgeous and I was ready to just buy it immediately. But they had accepted another offer that morning, which drove me crazy because it had been on the market for like 6 months. I'd been watching this house forever, and then somebody beat me to it by just a couple of hours. Like I called at noon and they had called at 10 a.m. Like just barely missed it. But they accepted my backup offer and they said that I had to be in Nashville ready in case it fell out of contract and I'd only have 24 hours to decide if I wanted to buy the house or not. So I packed up everything that I had in Florida in my high school car. That was the only vehicle I had down there, and drove on up to Tennessee. And now at this point we are in peak lockdown mode. I mean, it was like the height of the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was absolutely terrified. There was like crazy traffic in and out of the major cities. It was like gas stations were all super weird. I remember having the John Hopkins like app, okay, that was showing COVID cases per town and like selectively choosing which gas stations I went to based on where there wasn't COVID yet. Okay, that is how intense the COVID situation was at this point. But I drove up to Nashville, and once I got up here, I waited a few days to hear about that house, and I hadn't really heard anything. So I decided to just go ahead and take a look at a few other houses that were on the market just to see if maybe there was a house that I'd like even better. So I went and I set up 9 properties, I think, to go look at and set it all up. I went and I looked at 8 of them, and they were all there were some cool properties, but none of them really jumped out at me as being like, okay, this is my house, this is spectacular, I'm obsessed with it. So I didn't really have a lot of hopes. And then the second we pulled into property number 9, which it wasn't even something that I was thinking about, honestly. It didn't have as much land as I wanted. It had a really great location, but just from the pictures online, it didn't look like anything. There were barely any pictures on it. So I assumed that the house was like a total teardown for the price that it was listed at. It was really priced really, really low. And I thought it was just going to be kind of a disaster. And then we pulled into this property, and I just knew the second that we pulled in the driveway, this was my house. Like from the very first second I saw it, I just absolutely fell in love with this place. And just walking all around, it was right around this time of year actually. I put the house under contract on April 8th of 2020. And so that was like we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary very, very soon, actually. I just realized that we're so close to when I first saw the house. And I just walked around, and so it turned out that the listing agent for the house, when it's in his 90s, and he was retiring after this listing. This was his last listing ever. And it was just a family friend, and he just really didn't try very hard to list the house. They didn't hire a photographer, do any marketing really with it. And so that's why the listing just really didn't capture this place at all. I mean, I didn't know it had a pool. I didn't know there were barns. I didn't know almost anything about it. It was just looks like a regular house with not enough land. And then as soon as I saw it, I realized how amazing this place is. So I remember standing in the living room of the house, and I would not leave until the real estate agent submitted an offer on it, because I was so scared I was going to lose it again like I lost the last one. And the rest is just history. That was such an incredible day. It's been 4 years now, and I could not be happier with this place. Would still like to have a place with a bit more land someday. We're right at 4.5 acres, which I make it work, but I would like something closer to like 10 or 20 someday. But this place is just such a dream come true. I don't regret leaving New York for a second. This is just my favorite place in the world to be. So it all just worked out for the best. Sometimes I think about it, and I'm so happy that I didn't buy that house on the beach in Florida too. Man, it's just, I think I would have gotten really bored there. I love the beach, but I don't think I would have been nearly as happy spending every single day on the beach as I am on this farm, for sure. But thank you guys so much for watching and coming along on this journey with me. I hope you enjoy these videos. Like I said, make sure you're subscribed to see the next ones, and comment down below if you have any ideas or any specific topics that you want me to talk about. So I will see you on the next one.